I got the moves. I got the moves. I'm making moves. You gotta move. You gotta make the city move. Like, whoa. I make the city move. I got the move.
So, the second round is here, and one of the more exciting matchups is the series between Golden State and the Houston Rockets. They had the most entertaining series in last year's playoffs, and it's shaping up to be another great series. But who will win? In today's video, I'll be taking a look at the second round matchup for the Houston Rockets, the Golden State Warriors, and predicting the series, the team's strengths and weaknesses, the player who needs to step up, the key to success, every little detail. I'll be doing this for every Houston series, and maybe other series if they're interesting enough. If you guys enjoy the video and want to see more, subscribe for more NBA content. I'm going to be dropping a lot of bangers over the playoffs and off season, so stay tuned. And before we start, yes, I am a Rockets fan, but I'll be staying as unbiased as possible in this video. But with that being said, let's take a look at this second round matchup. The Houston Rockets are coming off a 5-game series win against the Utah Jazz. After cruising through the first 2 games, they started to struggle in Utah, but got the job done in the end. Harden had a few good games, and players like Chris Paul and Clint Capella made some big impacts when he struggled. The Golden State Warriors are coming off in an interesting series, to say the least. As the number 1 seed, they were supposed to cruise right past the 8 seed Clippers, but somehow they were taken to 6 games before getting through to the next round. They just seemed to lack intensity, but in the end, they did get the series win. It just wasn't easy as first thought. So, what are the strengths and weaknesses for each team? I did go over the Houston Rockets in my first round prediction video, but I'll recap them again. Shooting. An obvious one to start, the Rockets are an amazing team from the 3-point line and shooting in general. Look at their recent effort, where they hit 27 threes in one game. And it makes sense too, as they have one of the best shooters in the league in James Harden, and brilliant spot-up shooters like PJ Tucker and Eric Gordon, etc. Playmaking. Though the Rockets run through James Harden a lot, and he scores most of his points unassisted, the Rockets still have some great playmakers on their team, which add to the already superb starting lineup. Chris Paul is a for sure Hall of Fame playmaker, and along with others, they are a major positive for the Rockets. With that being said though, the Rockets do have a couple of weaknesses that need to be talked about. Depth. Though they have made it work this season, the Rockets actually have really poor depth throughout this season. They have a bunch of players who could be easily in the G League, but somehow they've made it work in their system. However, the lack of decent players off the bench may be exposed during the playoffs, especially against a team like the Warriors. Defense. The Rockets may be good at offense, but the other side of the court, not so much. Though they do have a few decent defenders in their lineup, like Chris Paul and Clint Capella, they are still ranked in almost the bottom 10 in defensive net rating, which is not good at all. So there are all the strengths and weaknesses for the Rockets. But what about the Warriors? Shooting. Let's start with the obvious one. The Warriors are just phenomenal at shooting. With players like Stephen Curry and Klay Thompson, as well as legendary scorers like Durant, when this team heats up, it's almost impossible to cool them down. Depth/starting lineup. Though DeMarcus Cousins is out of the lineup for the remainder of the season, the Warriors are still stacked. Their starting lineup is consistent of 4 All-Stars, and there's always at least 2 or 3 of them on the court at one time, unless it's garbage time, which is going to be extremely dangerous for the Rockets and crucial for them in this series. But there have been some weaknesses that I have picked up on during the first round that we need to talk about for the Warriors. Intensity. The Warriors' first big weakness is their intensity, or the lack thereof. I personally don't see this being a major problem for this series, but the Warriors aren't as aggressive as they should be so far these playoffs. Maybe it's just because they thought they'd cruise by the Clippers, but they can't have a breather versus the Rockets. They need to play at full intensity all the time this series. Consistency. Now, normally this isn't a problem, but I noticed that versus the Clippers, the Warriors actually became quite inconsistent shooting the ball. It was most noticeable at the end of Game 5, where Curry, Klay and KD all went cold from behind the arc, and this would inevitably cost them the game. This can't happen versus the Rockets, as they are going to make you pay for little mistakes like that. So those are the strengths and weaknesses for each team. But then there is always a player in every playoff series that needs to step up and dominate, because otherwise their team may lose. So, who is it for each team? For the Rockets, it has to be James Harden. He had a couple of games in the Jazz series where he was so cold he couldn't hit anything. Game 3 for example, he missed his first 15 attempts, and at the end of the game, he was 3 for 20 from the field, but they did still manage to win the game. Trust me, if this happens again, the Warriors will not let the Rockets win that game. James Harden cannot afford to play that bad against the reigning champs. It's going to cost them the series. For the Warriors, it's Kevin Durant. Though KD did have fantastic games in games 4 and 6 in the series versus the Clippers, he played awful in the opening 2 games, and in game 5, he was off a little bit. He can't allow himself to go cold like this again. He needs to play consistently the whole time. KD is the Warriors' main guy, and though they still have Curry and Clay and Draymond I guess to rely on, the Warriors are becoming more and more vulnerable with all the injuries sustained, and if he plays bad this series, the Rockets could actually win it. What is the key to success for each team? What does each team have to do if they want the best chance at succeeding and winning the series? For the Rockets, it's to utilize Chris Paul. I've said this before and I'll say it again, but when the Rockets are shooting poorly from beyond the arc or the team is just having an off game, Chris Paul is the guy that steps up and takes over. He drives, pulls up in the mid-range, he doesn't jack up a ton of threes just because. He's patient, he looks for the right pass or move, and it brings the Rockets back in the game. I've already spoken about how he was dearly missed in last year's Western Conference Finals and how much impact he would have made in that Game 7. He's going to play a huge role in this series. And for the Warriors, it has to be all about shutting down James Harden. If you lock him down, the Rockets get locked down, and it's going to be hard for them to get the momentum back. Get in his face, play physical defense, all you can do to slow him down. At the end of the day, this outcome of this series may just fall on the shoulders of James Harden's performances. If he heats up, it's hard to stop him, and the Warriors know that all too well. But now, it's time for my final prediction. In my completely honest, totally unbiased opinion, I think the Warriors are taking this series in 6 games, and here's why. Both teams are at a similar level of talent compared to last season, but recently, James Harden has been getting locked up. And though it may take the Warriors a couple of games to fully understand him, once they know how to guard him, it's game over. I also believe that the Warriors are going to up their intensity a ton this series, and play a lot more seriously than last series. The Rockets are their biggest competition for these playoffs in my eyes, and if they let them get a good start by not locking them down, the Rockets might pull this one off. And as a Rockets fan, I didn't want to say that as my prediction, and if the Rockets do end up winning, please come back and ridicule me in the comments. But I just have this gut feeling that this series isn't going past Game 6. I'm sorry. But what do you guys think of this? Who do you think will win this series and in how many games? Drop your prediction below with your reasons why. But if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe. But with that being said, I am out. Peace.